Should Mississippi State fans be concerned about Blake Shapen's injury history?
You are Locked On Mississippi State, your daily podcast on the Mississippi State Bulldogs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first to listen every single day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. My name's Jaron, that's Landon. We got to get into some more Mississippi State news. Blake Shapen, it's no secret he's got an injury history. That's why he missed just about every game last year. He played the first four, so I guess he played third of the games.
Yeah.
So Jeff Lebby was asked about Blake Shapen and his injury history, and all of his injuries have kind of been different. So that's, I guess, one. I don't know that I would look at that as kind of a positive. It's not like the same nagging injury, but instead it's multiple ones. But they asked him if he's been approaching, if Lebby has approached anything differently with it. He said there's been a lot of conversations. Don't take unnecessary hits. He said, I've said it forever. One of the things you love about Blake the most is how he plays the game. The kid will go die for you. I want to make sure that he's playing every single snap the entire year. So just trying to find ways to make sure he's healthy. What we call dive out of danger while taking care of the football, and understanding situational football will be huge for him. He's going to always have his edge, but him being smart with the ball in his hands in the open field will be important. So what's your thoughts kind of reading that?
One, I love the phrase dive out of danger.
Yeah.
That was my first thought. But no, it makes sense. I think that everyone tells every quarterback that to an extent,
right.
Don't take the unnecessary hit. But that's always easier said than done, especially when you have a guy like Shapen. He said he's willing to go out there and die for you. I mean, when the bullets start flying, that guy's going to do what that guy's going to do. As much training as you put into a guy, hey, get down, don't take that hit, run out of bounds. When it's crunch time, his instincts are going to kick in, and he's going to lower that shoulder and try to get that extra yard. You hope that, though, when he does that, it is like game on the line, important games, stuff like that, and he's not doing it unnecessary times. But, I mean, he's saying the right things, but I always wonder how, can you change a player, without changing the player?
Yeah, that's a good point. I was even going to say that it's kind of tough because obviously you want him to be smart because he has the injury history, but you also don't want him to play timid. And I feel like that happens a lot with players that kind of have injury histories. They get then preached to, like, hey, you got to take care of your body, take care of your body. RG3 is a great example in the NFL. And then they just become timid and they don't do what made them great. Now, I'm not saying it's wrong to be cautious because Shapen has to make it through the year. We've talked about this. You need him to make it through the year. So you need him to be smart. But at the end of the day, you don't want to take away what has made him a very good college quarterback.
And you mentioned it when we started, it's different injuries, which I do think is a positive. When you have someone who just has that one ACL or shoulder or whatever that just keeps getting hurt over and over and over, that's a player that I call injury prone. Person who has five different injuries, that's just an unlucky person.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what Shapen's been. He's been unlucky. He's had a bunch of different hits that have just caused different injuries, and maybe we don't have that much concern. Maybe it's just a bunch of bad luck and he can keep playing the way he's been playing and things are just going to break better for him. But you do want him to be smarter about when he takes those risks.
Yeah, and that's what I'm kind of curious about. Since all the injuries are kind of different, I'm kind of curious because I don't know it off the top of my head, and I wouldn't even know it even if even if you read it, you don't know exactly all the information. But
you're not a doctor?
Right. I'm not a doctor. But how did these injuries happen? Were they flukes? Were they, he could have avoided this injury if he did this? That would be something I would want to know before I start telling him what to do. Because if he's lowering his head on every single run and that's how he's getting hurt, okay, yeah, you got to be careful. But, if he's, just gets blindsided from the backside because the left tackle misses a block, what is he going to do differently there? You know what I mean? So is it worth having a conversation saying, hey, you need to protect yourself when that's something that's not his fault? Whereas the lowering the shoulder or fighting for extra yards every single time, that's stuff you should be able to correct. And at least we want to coach him to learn from.
Exactly. And I mean, how much can you change with those hits, even if you see them coming? I mean, we saw it in the NFL with Tua. He spent an entire offseason learning how to fall or whatever it was exactly. And it only helped him so long. I mean, when you don't see hits coming, you can't do anything different. Right. I do think you can tell him, be smarter about when you take the big hit, but you don't want to change who the player is, especially when it's your quarterback. And, part of, and then Lebby mentions it, is he's the type of leader he is. He's one of those guys that you can rally around. And if you take away that lowering your shoulder, fighting for the yardage, putting your body on the line, like when you throw the ball over the middle, you're asking that receiver to do.
Right.
I mean, I'm not saying he's going to lose the team if he doesn't take the big hit, but I mean, it does change how you would view that guy if all of a sudden he starts, putting himself not before the team, but thinking about it just a little bit. It could change how some players view it.
Like Cam Newton in the Super Bowl, not diving on the ball. I mean, and he was someone that rarely pulled back from taking hits. But in that moment, in that big moment, he did. And maybe it cost his team the Super Bowl.
And that's what he might be remembered most for.
Right. You're right. And I'm glad you brought up him talking about his role as a leader. I mean, if you just read the quote about him as a leader, he talked about, he said he's the guy that needs to set the expectation and tone for the room every day. So those guys understand that we're living and dying on every single snap, every single minute of every single meeting. That's how we have to prepare. Blake's done a really good job at that. And those guys have taken to that. The room is in a great place right now. And I cannot be more excited about those three guys and where we're at. We've got a ton of work to do to get better, but we've got talented guys in that room. And that's big. I mean, just that quote right there just shows not only how much he means to them as a player, and talent, but what he means to that room as a leader.
Guy, I'm ready to go line up.
Yeah, right.
I mean, we might go 2-10 again if you put me out there.
Maybe we might go 2-2. We might get Jeff Lebby fired if they throw us in there.
But no, I mean, that's what you want to hear. I mean, everyone always talks about the quarterbacks being the leader of the team,
right?
But it's, there's different types. Obviously, the quarterback is always going to be the leader. The quarterback's always going to be the captain, all of that. But it's different when it's the quarterback setting the tone for how hard you work, how much you film, you study, what your attitude is when you step on the field. When the quarterback's doing that, that's different than just your normal, the quarterback's a leader that you hear from everybody.
Yeah, no, for sure. And, I do want to read one more quote because it was kind of a funny quote. He was asked, not necessarily about Shapen, but just injuries in general. But he said, it looks like you've come through spring so far with very little damage in terms of injuries. He said, thank you for that, and then knocked on the podium. He said, we need to finish that way. I do think we're practicing in a better way because we've got better bodies that we needed to be able to practice the way we had to practice. So hopefully a reporter jinx doesn't come out there, or Mississippi State fans are going to want to have a call or at least a talking to with that reporter.
Have a word with him.
Yeah. Yeah. But he talked about this year, and he's talked about it multiple times, and we've talked about it, how because the team is deeper, they have more bodies, they can practice the way they wanted to, because they couldn't even do some of the stuff they wanted to do in practice last year because they just didn't have the bodies. And so that is so important that they have that this year, and they've been able to keep that and keep guys healthy.
Yeah, and if they can keep guys healthy going into the fall, I think we're going to see the team, like we've talked about. It's going to be tough to get to 5 wins or, something like that on this schedule. But I think we'll see the team that Lebby will put out over his tenure if this team goes out healthy. And, there's that old saying, like, they're a year away from being a year away. I think that's kind of where this team is. Like, we're not there yet, but we're going to start seeing those little breadcrumbs of what's being built. You'll see the fight. You'll see the mentality and the type of offense that you can come to expect going forward after this season if everyone stays healthy.
Yeah. And so my kind of question, given his injury history, going back to Shapen, given his injury history, and given what Lebby said about trying to teach him about, taking care of his body basically better, do you have concerns for an injury this year? I mean, obviously you obviously don't wish anyone. I'm knocking on wood myself over here, but is that at least a concern?
I mean, anytime someone's had more than one injury, it's going to be a concern, especially when it's someone like a quarterback who can take those blindside type hits or occasionally gets put in those situations where there's just nothing the quarterback can do but take that big hit. And we've seen it for years. They praise the guy who stands in the pocket, stares down the barrel, takes the big hit and completes the pass. I mean, he's going to take some hits, but you just got to hope that they don't hit him in the way that the ones have. So, I mean, there's always a concern, but.
Yeah, I agree. And that is a concern because of his history of multiple injuries. Now, again, it doesn't seem like it's the same one, but hey, that video they put out about your quarterback, you like, talk about some shifty. He's got to get a package or something, but that got me hyped for this.
No one's going to get a clean
really
this year.
Right. It didn't get me hyped for this year as much because I don't think he's going to play much, but the future's bright for him. I mean, he's shifty.
And I think you got to have a package in there for him at least for 4 games just to get him on the field. If you want to preserve that red shirt, you got to at least play him 4 games, get some packages out there, unless it proves just be too dynamic to where you can't pull him off the field in those times. But I mean, you got to get him some snaps.
Yeah, for sure. All right. We finally got a transfer portal edition. Exciting. And it's a big on top of that. We'll talk about that. That's coming up next. Well, this is a message from sponsor Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back, and then waiting, wondering, and worrying some more. Now Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find you every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy. All so you can get the most money back, guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now this is Taxes. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. All right, well, thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen every single day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, Landon, like I said, we finally got a
yes, we do.
We got finally a portal commitment. It's funny because after we recorded for Thursday's podcast, it was right when this one released, and we talked about how they have to start getting some guys in, and they needed to be bigs. Well, they got their wish. Quincy Ballard from Wichita State. He's a center. I believe he's 6'11". He averaged 10 points, 9.2 rebounds per game last year. He shot 75.1% during the season and set a program record of 62 dunks. I've watched some of his YouTube highlights. Obviously, there's just highlights. There's not like game breakdown or anything. No game tape, but I like what I see.
I do too. And, I think I said yesterday, we don't have any centers. Now we got one.
Yeah.
We got a big one.
Yeah, and he's athletic. He looks like he's going to be able to at least defend the rim.
Yeah. 1.9 blocks per game this year or this past season and 2.2 the season before that. Yeah. So he's definitely going to defend that paint.
He looks long. I mean,
very long.
Yeah. He's well built. Okay, yeah. Well, we were saying the same thing. He's well built. He's listed at 6'11", 240, and you can kind of see it. I mean, sometimes you worry that these guys are 6'11", 210, 215, 220 maybe, and they're a little skinny, but no, he's built well. You can tell he's been in college I think he just finished his 5th year. I think he's going into his 6th season, so you can tell it.
Sometimes you even worry about that 240 because sometimes they just don't carry weight well, but he looks strong. Like he's not a guy who's going to get bullied, and if he is, it's because the guy's a mammoth that's bullying him, and he's going to bully everyone. This is a very exciting addition. It's just what they needed. I mean, hopefully, don't let Jans get hot.
Right. Well, and you look at his 2-point percentage is 75.1, obviously, and then last year it was 72.4. You mentioned the 2.2 blocks last year, 1.9 this year. That led the conference, the American Athletic Conference. So that's obviously, again, a very solid pickup for Jans, to go along with who they got with McGee already. Now you have to get Hubbard back. I did see Keyshawn Murphy posted an interesting post where he looked like he was FaceTiming some of his teammates, or I guess Cam Matthews was one of them, so former teammates. Yeah. And, maybe the door's open for him to get back. The only thing you worry about in that scenario is neither one has much of they don't have a 3-point game, either one, and they don't really have much of a jump shot game. Murphy, obviously, a little more than Ballard.
I mean, that'd be a fun defensive pairing, though. Those two
Yeah.
guys roaming the paint with those long arms. I mean, it'd be hard to get any shots up in the paint with those guys out there. But I know this is very exciting. When I saw this, I was like, yes, this is what we needed. Wish it had come before some of these other guys left. I mean, I don't know if it would have changed anything, but I think you got your starting center. You still need another big to back him up.
It's funny you mentioned that. So also it was posted, Joe Tipton from On3 posted this yesterday as well. Malik Ewan is focusing on 5 schools. He's a Florida State transfer. He's also 6'11", averaged 14.2 points, 7.6 rebounds per game, and shot nearly 60% from the field.
That's 60%? What is this?
Yeah, right. The 5 schools he is focusing on going to be a tough uphill battle for him.
Yes.
It's Auburn, it's Kansas, Arkansas, Mississippi State, and Virginia. So it's not going to be easy for him. So I do think Ballard will end up being the starting center because I think Ewan will probably pick one of those other schools. But if you could get both, that'd be great. I don't see both coming if they're not going to be the starter.
I don't either, and they don't have the type of game where you can't play them together.
No.
This isn't like one of them has a good 3-point shot where you could stagger the minutes and they could play a little bit together and stretch the floor with one of them. I think the Ballard signing kind of takes Mississippi State out of the other one. I mean, the biggest thing is still getting someone on the wing. I mean, they need someone who can be a secondary scorer off of Hubbard, who can shoot a little bit, who can handle the ball a little bit. I mean, that's the biggest need now.
Yeah, you need more 3-and-D long guys. Your 6'6", 6'7" type small forwards or stretch power forwards. Some of those we've seen at 6'6", 6'7", 6'8", around there. They got to shoot the 3-ball better than they did last year. McGee obviously was a big signing in that, but he'll probably come off the bench. You need some guys that can come in and be that starter for him. But what Ballard does for you is it now allows your defense to be even better because if you get blown by, you now have a rim protector. And so we talked about how it would be tough to play McGee and Hubbard together, and I still think it would be. But if they did play together and they got beat, Ballard is now there to block the shot or alter the shot.
Right. And also just looking at the guys who are in the building now, the freshmen, your backup center might be there. I mean, they got a guy who's listed 6'10", 274. You're not going to have to play him a lot now. Ballard's the starter. That might be your backup center. You don't have to rely on him. And I know we both kind of have the same you don't want to rely on freshmen, but if they pop, great. They have that 6'5", 6'6" guys. They signed 2 of them. Maybe those guys are showing. Maybe those guys are. They're going to rely on them. You still want a veteran presence there, but it's not like the cupboard's completely bare.
Right, and that's kind of why I've said this before in podcasts, I kind of act like they don't exist because you don't want to rely on them. But if they come and improve, that they're that 3-and-D guy or the, the 6'10" guy that you mentioned can prove that he's a legit player and can at least be a role player for you, then I mean, by all means, they got to play because those are the bodies that you're missing. Mm-hmm. But no, this opens up so many opportunities for you as a team. Getting this signing, it was big to get one of the bigs on your roster. We talked about, I believe it was in the last episode, we talked about how there's a lot of teams in college basketball that need big help.
Yes.
And Ballard isn't just like some lower level one. They struck out, and they got this guy. We're still very early in the portal process. So this is someone they targeted early and went hard after.
And he isn't someone who was like the super high recruit that went somewhere, didn't play, and left. And you don't know what he can do. This guy's got, what did you say, 5 seasons?
5 seasons.
5 seasons of college basketball, 2 playing over 20 minutes a game where he shot over 70% from the field.
Right.
He's played big time ball. So you're not getting someone who's going to shrink once they're given more minutes because he's been there.
Yeah, he's proven. And the funny thing is, when you look at a picture of him, he looks like he's played 5 years of basketball. He kind of looks like he's maybe 30 years old out there. But no, I mean, it's a big signing. And, Mississippi State, you can't be done. You obviously have to keep going with this and get a little more. We don't have time to talk about it, so we'll talk about it probably on Monday. But the women also got a big signing, and they needed it. Yeah, they did. But they needed some help, and they did get one. And so we'll probably talk about that on Monday. But No, I like the signing, like the two signings they've had so far.
Yes.
But you've lost so much that you got to keep it going, and you got a lot of holes still to fix before you make that run that we hope they can make, and so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see what happens.
yeah, for sure. All right, so we got to talk about this crucial weekend for the baseball team on the diamond. That's coming up next. All right, well, thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen every single day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, Landon, so we've kind of talked about the baseball team. We talked about them earlier this week, and they had to get a big midweek game win, and they did over UAB. They won 8-3. This now marks 3 straight wins for them in 4 of their last 5 games. But they don't have an easy series this week. They play the Alabama Crimson Tide, who I believe last time I checked is 26-8 on the season. Or no, sorry, 28-6 on the season. So yeah, it's not going to be easy, and it's on the road. But like we talked about earlier in the week, got to get one. You got to get one. You can't get swept again.
Yeah, you got to get one. And they played very well on Tuesday. Noah Sullivan had another big game. Looking to defend his title as top dog of the week.
I was about to say, he's flirting with it again.
He's off to a strong start. I mean, can't give it to him yet. I mean, it's a big series. They got to get at least one. You want to at this point. But how the team's going, I mean, you really need to keep that momentum going and really be like, we deserve a spot in the postseason at a higher, the higher level that you expect to be at. And like I said, last week, they got rolling. Now they have to keep it going. And this is where it gets tough and see if they actually did turn a corner.
Well, and we talked about it earlier this week. After the Alabama series, you play Southern, who's not any good. You then play a series against Florida at home, who's not any good. You do have the midweek game against Ole Miss, who's obviously good, but then you play on the road in a series against Auburn, who's not very good, before ending you then play Memphis, and then you end with Kentucky, who's not very good. And then, that's how you kind of wrap up the end of April and the beginning of May. And then obviously you have some more series down there, but you have a couple series coming up that you can get rolling. You just can't get swept in these big ones. So you got Alabama right now. We talked about Ole Miss coming up a little later on, but that's weeks away. Those series, you just got to get one for sure. And maybe you can steal a series and get 2.
Yeah. I mean, you got to take the old cliche. You got to take it one game at a time right now. And this one, the biggest concern is getting swept here because they built some momentum. They're starting to get going. They got, 2 out of 3 last weekend, won both the last 2 midweek games.
Right.
You get swept here, you might lose all momentum, and the players start to see the postseason drifting away, and they start to check out. And it's like, yes, I love playing baseball. Yes, I want to represent my school, but like, what am I?
Yeah.
Like, why am I out here killing myself when this thing's ending in 30 days?
And then you go 2-1 against Florida and 2-1 against Auburn in series that you really need to sweep. I mean, yeah, you could lose your confidence like that. Whereas if you can at least get 1, maybe 2, keep that confidence, roll through Florida, roll through Auburn, roll through Kentucky, you're looking at being a tournament team at that point. But that's why it's crucial this week. I mean, Lamonis, this is your chance to prove it to the fans that you belong out there and that the early season struggles were just you were playing great baseball teams.
Yeah, and if they can get rolling, I mean, I didn't even look at – I mean, it wasn't great, but they were down to 1 error on Tuesday.
Yeah.
That's an improvement.
Yeah.
That's an improvement. Only 1 error. Not 2, just 1.
We'll see this weekend. Was it because it was an inferior opponent and they weren't as tight? Or we'll see. I don't know. But I will say on the flip side of that, they've struggled to – no matter the opponent. So it hasn't mattered so far.
Stands, it doesn't matter.
Right. So it'll be interesting to see what they do this weekend.
I'm excited.
I'm excited too.
I'm feeling 2 wins.
All right.
I'm feeing 2 wins. I think they're going to get 2.
I think they for sure get 1. And if they get swept
on Monday, but
I'm for sure feeling 1, and if they get swept, I'm probably going to come on Monday calling for Lamonis to be fired.
And be like, I wasn't feeling that one that strong. It was,
but hopefully they can get at least 1. If you can get 2, that's amazing because then you really could.
I feel like they're going to get 2, and if it's not 2, it's because they're going to lose on like a hit in the 9th, like a walk off. they get beat.
Right.
They have
Yeah,
it.
and if they can get 2, now you're really rolling.
Then you're cooking.
Yeah, you're cooking, and you're definitely threatening to be a tournament team. So we'll see what ends up happening. But thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL Draft with Damian Parson and Keith Sanchez. As your favorite collegiate players get ready for the next level, get the latest draft rankings, rumors, and news every day. Find Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. And if you're curious about Mississippi State players, we talked about them yesterday. So check out yesterday's podcast. Then, like I said, check out Monday's podcast if you want us to hear us talk about the women's transfer.
Yes.
We'll also obviously have Top Dog of the Week. Hopefully, we'll be talking a lot of baseball because they just came off a series win. Like
all the top dogs, they sweep. No.
Yeah, so we'll see. We'll see about that. But I'm Jaron. Check out my work on Athlon Sports. A lot of college football, college basketball, NBA over on there. And then check out my Twitter right there. Landon, that's his Twitter. Give him a follow. Follow Locked On Mississippi State. We're on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Obviously on YouTube. We're back to posting on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. Obviously, we post Monday through Friday here on YouTube. So like, subscribe, share, tell your friends, all that fun stuff. And until next time, Hail State.
Hail State.